What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to part 2 of fixing the oil leak on my R56. I went ahead and took the downpipe off. I took the heat shield, all the heat shielding is off. If you watch my last video I posted, I actually ceramic coat the downpipe. I'll show you how to do that, and I'll show you which ceramic coating I used. And there's a link in the description to that video on where you can get it from Amazon. But anyway, I went ahead and took the heat shield off, and I got it down in there, and I could see that it's not the oil feed line that's leaking, but I'm gonna replace it anyway because I already have it. It's the oil filter housing, but now I have the gasket, so now I can fix it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But I just want to let you guys know I took everything apart already because there hasn't been good weather, and I just couldn't get any film of it in the film. I filmed some of it, but I filmed it from the other side of the car, and the sun was the glare. You can't really see what I'm doing. So I'm not sure how good this video is going to turn out either, because I have, sun's right in my face. I don't have a garage. I'm filming everything outdoors. So I'm just going to go ahead and get to it. I got to get this oil leak fixed, and then that's what this video is going to be about. And then in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and install, my exhaust. And then I have another video that I'm going to do of doing a stage 3 tune for this JCW turbo. I have the tunes from a company called RPM Powered. Guy named goes by Mario Kart on all the forums and on Facebook and stuff. I already paid for that tune. I'm gonna get it done. He's been actually waiting a long time for me to do it because I've had a lot of stuff go wrong since I've paid for it. So it's been a few months, so I got to get that done. But like I said, there'll be a link in the description of oh no, that was the last video. But on this, what I want to tell you guys is this tool right here. If you're working on a Mini Cooper and you want to be able to, like everyone always says, oh, it's real hard, you have to take the front end off to get to the downpipe, take the downpipe off stuff. No, you don't. This right here fits right down in there. It took me, first time I took the lower heat shield is the only hard part on the downpipe to get off. And it only took me about, I don't know, 45 minutes total to get my downpipe off using this. And I'll link in the description where you can get one of these on Amazon. This tool right here, if you're working on Mini Coopers, you need this. It's awesome. I wouldn't buy these batteries for it because they last longer, but they don't they get in the way. The regular batteries are just small, like this bottom part, and you can slide the tool up there further. But for everything I've done, this has worked fine. I'll get some more batteries. I'll get the smaller ones next time. But that tool is invaluable. I wouldn't want to be working on Mini Cooper and not have it, but it works great. Well, anyway, all right, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna start tearing this apart, and well, let's get to it. Okay, so first thing I gotta do is I gotta take off these turbo hoses, which I've already got the inlet on or off because I already took off my turbo, whatever that pipe is called right here, that goes from the air box to the turbo. I already have that off, so I'm gonna go ahead and take off this boost pipe right here that goes to the hot side, the first hose on the hot side of the turbo. If I can get that off real quick. If I have any trouble getting it off, which I shouldn't, I'll just spray some WD-40 in it and it'll slide right off. But it should come off pretty easily. Alright, there it goes. Okay, so now that that's off, I can go ahead and I'm going to take the exhaust manifold off, and I'm going to leave the turbo attached to it. That's the easiest way I've found to do it. I've actually had it off before, obviously, when I put the JCW turbo on, but first I gotta take the coolant lines off, the oil feed line, and then the oil return line on the bottom. Once I get that off, then I'll go ahead and take the exhaust manifold off. So I'm gonna get to, okay, so this the oil feed line is it's a 17 millimeter, so I'm just gonna go ahead and break that loose with this, and then just hit the button. The next two, I believe, 19s. So I'll go ahead and get 19. Okay, so yeah, the next these two coolant lines are 19 millimeters. So let's go ahead and put a 19 on here. Just go ahead and break them loose real quick. And break them both loose. Actually, before I get too carried away with that, I'm going to go ahead and put something underneath to catch the coolant when it falls. Okay, I went ahead and I set a coolant drain pan underneath. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take these off. Do this, you want to make sure you don't lose the copper washers that are on this banjo bolt, because if you have, you should probably replace these. I'm not going to because I don't have any, but you probably should. I'm going to figure out where that washer went, but I'll find it. Alright, so now I'm going to have to get underneath the car and take out the oil return line, which it's pretty easy. I found my other copper washer while I was getting into the car. This is the 8mm bolt that you need to take off. I'm not going to be able to hold the camera while I take that off, so I just wanted to show you guys where it was. But it's an 8mm and it comes off pretty easy. So this is the 8mm bolt that holds it in. I was able to take it out. I used this really long extension on this electric ratchet. Worked out pretty good. Okay, to take the exhaust manifold off, it's an 11mm. They're all 11mm. Some of them are a little bit hard to get to. So I'm just gonna, I'll use this where I can. Other places where I can't, I'll just use this ratchet. I use a deep socket where I can, and some places you can't, or it's just easier to get to. So I just use one that's not deep, that's on a swivel, so it lets it pops out, gives you a little bit more room so the stud doesn't hit. But if you have like one that's in between the two, it'd be a little bit better. It'll work out perfect, actually, probably. But I've done it with just the deep socket, and that's what I'm gonna try to do right now. But all right, I'm gonna get that off. So first you wanna, mine already broke loose. I broke them loose already, but you just take it off. I'm just gonna loosen them. You want to do it from the outside, but I've already broken the outside ones loose. You want to go from the outside in. Say it the reverse order as you would when you put it on. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take the whole manifold off, and then I'll show you what it looks like. One quick thing: when you're taking off the bolt that's right in front of the flange on the turbo where the downpipe meets, you're gonna want to remove one of these studs, because without removing the stud, you can't fit the tool in there to take it off. But it comes off super easy, as you just saw, once you remove the stud. Once you remove the first 3 studs on the very top of not the studs, but the first 3 nuts on the top left-hand side, passenger side of the motor, you'll get one of these brackets, and just take it off. And make sure you don't lose it. There's one on the top, and there's one on the side over here underneath the turbo that's actually pretty hard to put back on, but you can do it. I'll try to show you how to do it. Then there's another one underneath, and there might be one more, but if there is, I'll show you. I'll show you all of them once I get them off. One quick note: before you take your downpipe off, you should disconnect the negative wire on your battery cable, because what'll happen is sometimes when you pull your downpipe off, you can hit the wire that connects to your alternator, and it'll short out. Or when you're trying to get the bottom bolts on your manifold, which I'm about to take off right now, you'll hit that. Mine's already disconnected because I disconnected it when I started doing this. But also, before you disconnect, your negative battery cable, it's a good idea. You want to crack open both of your doors because, you know, you're a mini driver, you know, when you open the door, it comes down a little bit. So if you, or your window comes down a little bit. So if you disconnect your negative battery cable while the doors are closed, when you go to get in and out of your car, your window's not going to come down. So, you know, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I just crack both the doors, disconnect the negative battery cable, and then I just close the doors again. And then while I'm working on my car, I can get in and out of the car without worrying about, you know, damaging the window in any way. This is the bottom one. This is the one that, you know, the 3 bolts right underneath on the bottom side of the passenger side of the exhaust manifold, opposite side of the turbo. Okay, so what I do to get the last 2 bolts off, the ones on the, well, first the 2 bolts that are on the middle and the bottom, I went underneath. I just used a deep socket and this ratchet, and they came right off from the bottom, no problem. And then once you get, you know, you have the 2 on the end. Those are the ones that people probably have the most trouble with. But once you have the bottom oil return line bolt off, you can pull it off and pull it out of the way. And then all you need to do is, these little extensions, they move around. So you have a lot of wiggle room in these. And so what I do is I use a screwdriver, and with the bottom feed line moved, or the oil return line moved out of the way, I just put the, well, yeah, I shove it in there, and then I use the, you know, the screwdriver on the other end so I can put it on the bolt, and then I attach the ratchet to it and take the bolt off. It goes pretty easy. Do that on both bolts, and it's actually really easy. It only takes a few minutes. To get the actual bolt out, once I've already loosened it, I use one of these pen magnets from Harbor Freight. Stick it in there. Just pull it off. It was that easy. Okay, this is the I can't even see where I'm holding it, but this is the bracket that goes underneath the turbo. It's gonna sit like this, right underneath the turbo. It's the hardest one to get back on, but I just took it off pretty easily. As you can see, I didn't put my car in service mode. I didn't take the front end off. You don't need to do that if you have the right tools. I feel like if I took the front end of my car off, which I don't know how long that would take, if I was good at it, maybe 30 minutes at the least, but it would probably only save me maybe 5 minutes of work, so I don't see the point of it. I have everything off. I could probably pull this out right now. I mean, I can see where there's a little bit more room if I had the front end pulled out, but this is going to come out. I've had it out before. Of course, it's a lot harder this time than it was when I did it before, because I have the camera rolling. I'm going to go ahead and get it out. Let me turn this off. So there it is. I got the turbo manifold and the turbo out. I didn't take the front of the car off. What was giving me a little bit of trouble before is I still had the vacuum line hooked up, and I still had the boost or the whatever it's called, diverter valve hooked up. So that was holding me. And you want to take this off first. I didn't. I just had it loose, but it still came out with that on. So if I'd have taken that off, it came out even easier. This is the exhaust manifold gasket. If you have another one, I would suggest changing it out. It looks pretty strong. I'm going to use it. I've reused it before when I've taken it out. I'm going to clean it real good, clean the surface of, you know, where it goes on real good. You don't want to get an exhaust leak, you know, because you just saw how much work it was to get to it, to fix it. But I'm all pretty close now. All I got to do now is start taking apart my oil filter housing and get this job done. Okay, so the 4 bolts you need to take off. One is right here, one is right here, one is right here, and then if you reach around underneath, there's one. It's super easy to get to. I think the reason that people probably take the front end off is because they leave the exhaust manifold on, but this seems like it's way easier than taking the whole front end off, and it didn't take me that long. I actually take it off all the time. I'm going to take it off again in another video when I ceramic coat it, so it's not that hard. Since I'm going to replace my oil feed line, I'm going to go ahead and take this bolt out right here. Let's see, I'll tell you guys what size it is. It is a 17 millimeter. I'm just going to go ahead and take that out, take off this oil feed line. That way when I put it back together, I can put it back together with the steel braided line I have. That I'll link to description where I'll put a link in the description where you can get one. Steel braided is just the way to go. Everybody says that these leak at the top. It looks like it could leak at the bottom. Mine's not leaking, but why take the chance? The steel braided ones are just better and they look cool. So might as well fix it right the first time. You're gonna need to have coolant on hand because you gotta drain your coolant. You gotta change it. So you gotta, put in new coolant. You're gonna have to change your oil. I have all that stuff. I don't have coolant here right now. I have coolant. Once again, it got shipped to my work a day later than I was gonna be there. So I'm just gonna fill it with distilled water, and just to get the, just to get it running, and then I won't drive it until I get the coolant in it. But I'll be able to drive it, just to get it going good, flush all the old coolant out with distilled water, and then I'll drain it, and then I'll fill it with the right amount of coolant. I'll show you guys how to do that too. Oil filter housing, it actually just came right off. These little rubber gaskets are what you're going to replace. I'm going to pull these out with some needle nose pliers or something. How that one comes out pretty easy. So get this one too with one hand. Yeah. So I'm going to pull those out. I pulled those out, and I have just an OEM replacement. I'll put a link in the description where you can get that. I can't actually remember where I bought mine, but I'll find one for you. And so you just put those back in. Make sure to clean up the area that it came from, because you don't want to get a leak just because you have some gunk on there. And you can see how bad my oil leak was. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera or not, but it was bad. So I'm going to clean all that up. That way if it does leak again, I can see where it's coming from. And I don't think it'll be leaking from this spot if it is leaking, or either these two things I'm fixing. So yeah, if it's not that, it's probably the head gasket, but I don't think it's a head gasket because I'm not having any issues with it. But yeah, so let me put these gaskets back on, get my car back together, and then I can start on my exhaust. Okay, so I got those gaskets replaced. What's nice about them is with these little tabs and how they're set up, you can't really put them on wrong. You just put them on. And then, so now all I gotta do is I'm gonna wipe this area up. I'll wipe it off a lot better off camera, but I'm gonna show you. I'm just gonna wipe all that up. I'll clean all my transmission and stuff off this oil. And then all I gotta do is put it back together. Guess I went ahead and I put my oil filter housing back on. You can see I already have a new return line. I got that from I believe Way Motorworks. I'll put a link. I did get this from Way Motorworks. I'll put a link in the description for that. Let's see. Then all I gotta do now. I gotta install my oil feed line, exhaust manifold, and turbo. Put everything back together. And downpipe. Okay, so that's the steel braided line that I ordered, and those are the fittings for it. They all come together. It's all brand new. It's gonna be pretty nice. Put a link in the description to where you can get this. I decided to film in my car so you can actually see. I can't see what I'm filming really outside because of the sun, so doing the best I can. Oil feed line on. It's a steel braided line. I'm not exactly sure how to route it yet. Once I put the exhaust heat shields on, you just gotta make sure that this goes behind the right spot on the bottom heat shield. And you definitely want to make sure you put that bottom heat shield on in the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that on right now. So the bottom heat shield is this right here. You just put it on these two bolts right here, and there's a nut that goes right here. And I don't have that nut, so I'm not gonna put it on. So I just put those two on. And these right here are what's gonna, at the bottom of your motor, it's gonna mount your downpipe, your brackets for your downpipe. So you definitely want to put this on. Plus it keeps the heat off of your engine block from your downpipe. So with it in place, you can see that's where the steel braided line comes out. You want to make sure that that goes through there, it's not stuck behind your heat shield, or when you put everything together, you're gonna have to take it back apart because you're gonna have a huge exhaust leak. But right there will work fine. Okay, so the next step, I got to put my just gonna put my exhaust manifold on and turbo. It's all one piece. just gonna slide that in. I'm gonna take that bracket off first, just because it's easier to put it back in. Gotta remember, you're gonna hook up there's one connector that goes to your would be a blow-off valve, I can never remember, diverter valve, and then there's a vacuum line that goes to your wastegate. And don't forget those two things. That's all that you have to remember. A 10mm bolt in it. If you take that bolt out, you can move this whole coolant line. It makes it so much easier. Without taking that bolt out, you won't be able to get your exhaust manifold in and out. Backwards. So you want to put the side with the 90 on the bottom. Make sure you don't make same mistake I did, because a lot of people can't pull their exhaust manifold off as easy as I can, and it might take you a little bit longer than it took me about 5 minutes. It might take you 20. You can see I got the top oil feed line on. Now I'm going to hook up these coolant lines, and then I'll hook up the oil return line. Then I'll put these bolts in, put my hosing back on. I'm going to do the downpipe last, because I'm going to do my whole exhaust on another video. So it's pretty easy to do, but I'll do it on the next video. I have the drain line on, the oil drain line on. Got the turbo line on, it's all tightened up. So now I just got to bolt on my exhaust manifold. The way you do that, I'm going to tighten from I'm going to put them all on, but then when you torque them down, you torque down the middle ones first and work your way out. And I'm going to do it in 2 passes. And then after that, I'll get the downpipe on, heat shield, and then I'll be done. This last clip or bracket right here, I don't know what it's called, but I already put the other 2 on. I was gonna show you guys how to do it, but it's real easy. The one on the top, you'll see that they have this round part on it right here. That round part faces towards the runner. So the one that's on the top, the round part faces down. The bracket that's on the bottom, the round part faces up. And the bolt holes, in order to get them to line up, you can only put it on one way. So it's actually pretty simple. This one is the hardest one to get on, but I'm going to go ahead and reach under there and stick it on. It's pretty easy when you have everything at the point where no downpipe and all that stuff. It goes on pretty easy. Okay, so what I did is I reached underneath the turbo, and I just put it on from the bottom. It took about a minute. It was way easier than I was anticipating. I've done it before though, but it was real easy. Once you get it under there, get the top part of the bracket on the top bolt, and then get the bolt that's furthest towards the passenger side of the car, if you're driving an American car, on first. So once those 2 bolts line up, everything just slides right on, and it goes on super easy. Okay, so I went ahead and earlier I said I put the oil return line on. I'm gonna go ahead and take that back off. Don't put yours on until after you've torqued down the manifold, because I forgot you can't get to those bolts unless you move the hose out of the way. So go ahead and you leave that off, torque down the whole manifold, and then put the oil return line back on. Okay, so you don't want to put your coolant hose on, not the coolant hose, but the banjo fitting, the bottom one. You want to leave that one off, and the oil return line. That way this will slide in easy. With those out of the way, it's super easy. I don't know why I put those back on before I went to torque down the manifold. But now I'm going to torque down the manifold. I got all the bolts on, and then go from there. Alright, so I got the exhaust manifold all tightened up. I just tightened it with a ratchet. I didn't use a torque wrench. I don't actually know the torque specs. I didn't see it in the manifold. Or in the book. I just tightened them from the inside. I move out. I did the first pass. I just did it to where they were just barely snug, maybe 5 pounds. And the second pass, I actually hit them all with this, which is 35 pounds. And then the third pass, I said I was going to do 2, but I did 3. I did with this, and all I did was I just started, and I just got to where I felt like they were just a little bit tighter than that. So they're pretty tight. You're tightening on the studs, so you're not tightening into the aluminum block. So you can get them kind of tight, but you don't want to go too tight and pull the stud out of that aluminum. And I've never had that happen, yeah. So just be careful about that. So I got that on. So now it's time to put this stud back in. Put my downpipe back on. I'm going to do that. I said I was going to do that in another video, but I'm going to do that because I'm going to put the heat shield on. And then after that, I got to put these 2 lines back on. I gotta install this. Don't forget to put this back on. I've done it before. Last time I did this, I didn't put this back on, and every time going down a bumpy road, I was just real nervous. I don't know if it's actually an issue, but this thing is really thick. I don't think they would make it this thick and this heavy if you didn't need it. If you know differently, go ahead and comment and let me know. I would, if I don't need it, it seems like you do. I mean, that's a heavy turbo, but this also, the exhaust manifold is cast iron, or seems to be cast iron, so it doesn't. I don't know. I just put it on there. It's not that hard to do. All right, so I'm gonna install my downpipe. If you saw my last video, you know I just ceramic coated this myself. Go ahead and watch that video if you want to learn how to do that. And it goes on that easy when you have everything off. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the bolts on, and then I'll put the braces on the bottom, and then the next step is to put the top heat shield on and change out my exhaust. Will be another video for that though. Alright, so now I just got to get this heat shield on and go from there. It's pretty straightforward to put the heat shield on. Actually, before you put the heat shield on, you want to put the heat shield for the oil feed line. Let me see if I can find mine. Alright, so you want to put the heat shield on for the oil feed line first. I don't know if this one actually works with this kit. We're about to find out. And it does. Alright, so now go ahead and put this heat shield on. Goes on pretty easy, as you can see. Tighten those. I believe these are 10s. It's an 11. I like to get them started by hand first, just so they're, I know that they're not cross-threaded. And just take the electric ratchet. Shields on. Now I just got to put my O2 sensor on. I got to put the brace for the turbo, and that's it. So I'm not going to make you guys watch me do that. I'm sure you know how to do that. Well, I'll tell you. I'm not going to be able to get the camera under there, but this bolt, there's a spot on the actual turbo housing itself that there's just a little round hole. Put that on, it has threads in it, you thread into that. This goes up against the block, it holds the heat shield. This wouldn't have rattled so much if I'd had this on already. And then, you put your O2 sensor on, and that's it. So please like and subscribe. It helps me with the YouTube. Like I said, there'll be a link in the description where you can buy this. This tool is awesome. I'll put a link in the description of where you can buy the oil feed line, oil return line, and the oil housing gaskets. And that should be it. Oh, don't forget, you have to. I'm gonna do a whole video on how to bleed your exhaust or your coolant. So I'm just gonna put distilled water in here for now, just get it going because my coolant's not here yet. And but when I do put the right coolant in, I'm gonna do a video on how to bleed the whole system. So stay tuned for that. And after doing this, you need to change your oil. So I'm also gonna change my oil. I don't know if I need to do a video on how to change your oil, but if you would like me to, leave a comment. I'll do that. It's pretty easy. It's actually really easy. So until the next video, stay tuned. Don't forget to put your intake hose back on.